In 2018, Sweden did something no country ever does. They admitted they lied. Not through a press conference, not through a formal apology, but through a single tweet. Their official government account posted, "Swedish meatballs are actually based on a recipe King Charles XII brought back from Turkey in the early 18th century. Let's stick to the facts." And just like that, one of the most iconic national dishes in the world, the thing IKEA has served over 1 billion times, turned out to belong to someone else entirely. Swedish meatballs aren't just food in Sweden, they're identity. They're the dish your grandmother made. They're what 700 million people eat at IKEA every single year. If you say Swedish food to anyone on earth, this is the first thing they picture. Small, perfectly round, swimming in creamy gravy sitting next to lingonberries. Sweden built an entire national brand around this dish. Cookbooks, tourism campaigns,
and our national dish will be meatball fondue.
An IKEA empire. And none of it was originally theirs. Here's where it gets interesting. To understand how Turkish meatballs became Swedish, you need to meet one of history's most reckless kings, Karl XII, King of Sweden, known as the last great warrior king of Europe. In 1709, Karl picked a fight with Peter the Great of Russia at the Battle of Poltava. He lost, badly. With his army shattered and Russian forces closing in, Karl did the only thing he could. He fled south into Ottoman territory and threw himself on the mercy of the Turkish Sultan. And the Sultan actually welcomed him. For nearly 5 years, Karl XII lived as a guest, then a captive of the Ottoman Empire, mostly in a city called Bender in what is now Moldova. He wasn't exactly suffering. He had a full royal court, diplomatic negotiations to run, and, crucially, access to Ottoman cuisine. The Turks had been eating kofte for centuries, spiced pan-fried meatballs, sometimes with rice, sometimes flatbread. Simple, flavorful, satisfying. Karl ate it constantly. His entourage ate it constantly. And when he finally returned to Sweden in 1715, they brought the recipe back with them. What happened next is what always happens with food history. The recipe got passed around Swedish kitchens, adapted to local ingredients. Breadcrumbs instead of bulgur, cream sauce instead of spices, lingonberries on the side because that's what Scandinavia had. Within a generation, nobody remembered where it came from. By the 1800s, Swedish cookbooks were claiming it as their own. By the 1900s, it was a national treasure. By the 2000s, it was funding IKEA's global expansion. The Ottoman origin had been completely scrubbed from the story. Then came 2018. Sweden was running a campaign celebrating honest, transparent government, and someone in charge of their Twitter account decided to put that honesty to the test. One tweet, 38 words, and the entire food world lost its mind. Turks were triumphant. Swedes were confused. Food historians were smug. IKEA said nothing. But here's the thing. This kind of story isn't unique to Sweden. Almost every national dish you can name has an origin story that crosses borders, empires, or centuries. Food doesn't carry a passport. It never has. Swedish meatballs still taste exactly the same as they did yesterday. But now you know what you're actually eating. A 300-year-old act of culinary diplomacy, dressed up in cream sauce and called something it isn't. That's food history. Nothing belongs to anyone forever. Subscribe if you want more of the stories behind the food on your plate, because the real recipe is almost never what the label says. Drop a comment. Which national dish do you think is hiding a secret origin story?